The hospital room faded away as Rachel's heart monitor flatlined. In an instant, she found herself floating above her own body, witnessing the frantic efforts of doctors to revive her. But this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. As darkness enveloped her, Rachel was thrust into a surreal landscape where America's future unfolded before her eyes. What she saw there would forever change her understanding of faith, destiny, and the choices we make. This is her story. Rachel's day had begun like any other, filled with the usual routines and responsibilities. But fate had other plans, and she soon found herself in the sterile confines of a hospital room. The steady beep of monitors and the hushed voices of medical staff created an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. As Rachel lay on the hospital bed, her condition deteriorated rapidly. The doctors and nurses moved with practiced efficiency, their faces etched with concern. Suddenly, the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor gave way to a single, unbroken tone. Rachel's heart had stopped beating. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Rachel felt a strange sensation, as if she were floating above her own body. She watched in bewilderment as the medical team sprang into action, their movements frantic yet coordinated. She could see herself lying motionless on the bed, pale and unresponsive, while the doctors worked tirelessly to revive her. This out-of-body experience was unlike anything Rachel had ever known. She felt a profound sense of peace and detachment from the chaos unfolding below. The physical world seemed distant and unimportant, as if she were observing it through a veil. As Rachel hovered above the scene, she became aware of a warm, comforting light that seemed to emanate from somewhere beyond the hospital room. The light grew stronger, drawing her attention away from her physical body and the efforts to revive it. She felt an irresistible pull towards this radiant source. The hospital room began to fade from view, replaced by a darkness that was somehow both enveloping and inviting. Rachel felt no fear as she was drawn deeper into this unknown realm. Instead, there was a sense of anticipation, as if she were on the threshold of something profound and life-changing. As the last vestiges of the physical world disappeared, Rachel found herself in a place beyond description. The darkness gave way to a landscape that defied earthly logic, a realm where the laws of physics no longer seemed to apply. Colors she had never seen before danced at the edges of her vision, and she felt a sense of expansion, as if her consciousness was growing beyond the confines of her mortal form. In this new realm, Rachel began to perceive things differently. Time seemed to lose all meaning, and she felt connected to something vast and eternal. Thoughts and emotions flowed through her with incredible clarity, unhindered by physical limitations. As Rachel acclimatized to this strange new environment, she became aware of a presence. It was not something she could see or hear in the traditional sense, but rather a feeling of being guided or accompanied on this journey. With this presence as her silent companion, Rachel prepared to explore the surreal landscape that stretched out before her, sensing that she was about to witness something of great significance. The familiar world of the hospital had faded completely now, replaced by a realm of spiritual wonder and prophetic vision. Rachel stood at the precipice of an extraordinary journey, one that would reveal to her the fate of nations and challenge everything she thought she knew about reality, faith, and the future of America. Reality melted away, revealing a world beyond imagination. As Rachel surveyed the otherworldly landscape, one question burned in her mind. Why did the American flag, a symbol of strength and unity, suddenly feel so ominous? The answer would shake the foundations of everything she believed about her nation's future. Rachel found herself standing in a vast, shimmering expanse. The ground beneath her feet sparkled like crushed glass, each grain reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors. The sky above swirled with deep reds, oranges, and purples, creating an atmosphere that defied earthly logic. This was no ordinary desert. It was a realm where the very fabric of reality seemed to bend and shift. As Rachel's eyes adjusted to the surreal environment, she noticed towering spires rising from the glittering sand. These structures pulsed with an eerie life force, as if they were breathing in perfect synchronicity. Atop each spire, a flag fluttered in a non-existent breeze, representing nations from around the world. The sight was both beautiful and unsettling, a stark reminder that even in this otherworldly place, the divisions of Earth still held sway. Among these colossal towers, one stood taller than the rest. The American flag adorned its peak, its stars and stripes seeming to writhe with an unnatural vitality. As Rachel gazed upon this familiar symbol, an inexplicable sense of dread washed over her. The flag that had once represented hope and freedom now felt like a harbinger of something far more sinister. Drawn by an invisible force, Rachel began to approach the American flag tower. With each step, the air grew heavier, charged with an energy that made her skin prickle. The other spires faded into the background, leaving only the stars and stripes looming before her. As she drew closer, Rachel could see that the flag was not merely moving in the wind, it was pulsating, as if alive with its own consciousness. The symbolism was undeniable. This living flag, perched atop the highest spire in a sea of nations, represented more than just America's place in the world. It embodied the very soul of the nation, its values, its identity. And yet, as Rachel watched, she sensed that something was terribly wrong. Without warning, a tremor ran through the glassy sand beneath her feet. The American flag tower began to sway, its movements becoming increasingly erratic. Rachel's heart raced as she realized what was about to happen. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the mighty spire began to crumble. The once proud American flag disintegrated, its fragments scattering like ash on the wind. As the dust settled, Rachel stood in stunned silence. The tower's collapse was more than just a physical event. It was a profound revelation about the future of her homeland. The fall of this symbol represented the decline of American values, the erosion of national identity, and the potential for a dark chapter in the nation's history. But even as Rachel grappled with the implications of this vision, she sensed that her journey was far from over. The destruction of the American flag tower had opened a void in the landscape, and from this emptiness, something new was emerging. A massive, dark form began to take shape, rising from the ashes of the fallen spire. Rachel steeled herself, knowing that whatever came next would be crucial to understanding the message she was meant to receive. As the dust settled, Rachel's eyes widened in disbelief. What rose from the ashes of America's fallen symbol was not a beacon of hope, but a monolith of darkness that seemed to devour the very light around it. Could this ominous structure hold the key to deciphering the fate that awaited her nation? The massive black obelisk pierced the sky, its surface smooth and impenetrable. Strange symbols glowed with an eerie, pulsating light, etching intricate patterns across its obsidian face. These markings seemed to shift and change, as if alive with an ancient, forbidden knowledge. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine as she gazed upon this imposing structure, sensing that it represented something far more sinister than mere stone and light. As she stood before the obelisk, Rachel was overcome by a profound sense of dread. The air around her grew thick and heavy, pressing down on her with an almost tangible weight. It was as if the very presence of this monolith was draining the life and hope from the surrounding landscape. Rachel struggled to breathe, her heart pounding in her chest as she grappled with the oppressive atmosphere. In spiritual visions, darkness often symbolizes evil or the absence of divine presence. Rachel's experience of being enveloped in this living darkness echoed themes found in prophetic literature, where such darkness represents moral decay and spiritual desolation. The obelisk loomed over her, a physical manifestation of this encroaching evil, its power seeming to grow with each passing moment. Throughout history, obelisks have been used as symbols of power and permanence in various cultures. In ancient Egypt, they were erected to honor the sun god Ra, embodying the sun's rays and symbolizing resurrection and immortality. But this obelisk was different. Instead of reaching towards the heavens, it seemed to draw its strength from the depths of the earth, channeling a power as old as time itself. As Rachel stood transfixed by the sight before her, a voice echoed through the desolate landscape. It was neither loud nor soft, but it resonated with an authority that shook her to her core. "The foundation is gone," it declared, the words hanging in the air like a death knell. Rachel understood instinctively that this proclamation was not just about the fallen tower, but about the very principles upon which her nation had been built. The realization struck her with devastating clarity. The obelisk represented a dark force rising to power, filling the void left by the collapse of American ideals. It was a stark warning of the consequences that await when a society loses sight of its moral compass and succumbs to fear, hatred, and division. As the implications of this vision sank in, Rachel became aware of a shift in the landscape around her. The glittering desert began to fade, giving way to the outlines of a city in the distance. Smoke rose from its buildings, and the sound of chaos drifted on the wind. Rachel knew that her journey was far from over. With a mix of trepidation and determination, she set out towards the urban sprawl, sensing that what she would witness there would be crucial to understanding the full scope of the message she was meant to receive. Rachel's heart raced as she neared the outskirts of the burning metropolis. The cityscape before her was unlike anything she had ever seen, a terrifying blend of past, present, and a future yet to unfold. What ancient prophecies were coming to life in this modern-day inferno? As Rachel entered the city, the devastation was overwhelming. Once towering skyscrapers now stood as hollow shells, their windows shattered and walls crumbling. Smoke billowed from countless fires, casting an eerie, apocalyptic glow over the urban wasteland. The air was thick with ash and the acrid smell of burning debris, making it difficult to breathe. Panicked crowds surged through the streets, their faces etched with fear and desperation. People pushed and shoved, trying to escape the chaos that engulfed them. Children cried out for their parents, while others stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the destruction around them. Amidst the pandemonium, Rachel noticed something even more chilling. Faceless figures moved through the crowd with purposeful precision. These enigmatic beings, devoid of any distinguishing features, seemed to be rounding up people at random. Their movements were methodical and emotionless, a stark contrast to the frantic energy of the fleeing masses. The scene before her echoed historical accounts of societal collapse and oppression. Rachel couldn't help but draw parallels to dark moments in human history when individuals were stripped of their identities and subjected to unimaginable cruelty. The faceless figures embodied the worst aspects of humanity in times of crisis, their actions a grim reminder of how quickly civilization can unravel. As Rachel watched the unfolding horror, she recalled the apocalyptic visions described in various religious texts. The burning city, the chaos, and the sense of impending doom all aligned with prophecies of the end times. She wondered if this vision was a literal glimpse into the future or a symbolic representation of the challenges humanity would face. Suddenly, the sky above began to change. The smoke-filled air took on a deep, unsettling crimson hue. The blood-red sky cast an otherworldly light on the city, intensifying the sense of doom and foreboding. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the transformation wasn't over. Without warning, points of light began to streak across the crimson sky. At first, Rachel thought they might be shooting stars, but as they grew closer, she realized with horror that these were no celestial phenomenon. The stars were plummeting towards the earth, leaving trails of fire in their wake. As the falling stars crashed into the city, explosions rocked the ground. Buildings that had somehow survived the initial devastation now crumbled under the celestial assault. The panicked crowds grew even more frenzied, their screams drowned out by the thunderous impacts. Rachel stood transfixed, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of destruction unfolding before her. The city, already in ruins, was now facing annihilation from above. As she watched the stars rain down from the blood-red sky, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a vision. It was a warning. As the chaos reached its peak, Rachel became aware of a shift in the air. Something was changing once again. She turned her gaze skyward, sensing that the next revelation in this harrowing journey was about to unfold. What new symbol would emerge from this landscape of destruction, and what message would it carry about the fate of her nation? In the midst of chaos, silence suddenly fell. Rachel's attention was drawn to a single point in the blood-red sky, where a familiar shape was taking form. Could this be the harbinger of America's future? As the smoke parted, a majestic eagle emerged, its wings spread wide against the crimson backdrop. This wasn't just any eagle. It was a living embodiment of America itself. Its feathers gleamed with a golden light, reminiscent of the nation's prosperity and power. The eagle's eyes burned with an intensity that spoke of freedom and strength, values that had defined the American spirit for generations. But something was terribly wrong. As the eagle soared overhead, Rachel noticed flames licking at its wings. The fire spread rapidly, consuming the once proud bird in a terrifying display. The eagle's cry of anguish echoed across the devastated landscape, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of a nation's suffering. Rachel watched in horror as the burning eagle plummeted from the sky, leaving a trail of embers in its wake. The sight was both beautiful and heartbreaking, a vivid representation of a great power brought low. When the eagle finally crashed to the ground, an eerie stillness descended upon the scene. The impact seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of reality, as if the world itself was acknowledging the fall of a mighty empire. In American culture, the eagle has long stood as a powerful symbol of freedom, strength, and national identity. Its presence on the Great Seal of the United States, currency, and countless national emblems has made it an enduring icon of American ideals. Yet in Rachel's vision, this revered symbol was reduced to ashes, a stark warning of the potential fate awaiting the nation. As Rachel contemplated the fallen eagle, her mind raced with historical parallels. Great empires of the past, Rome, Byzantium, the Ottomans, had all believed in their own invincibility, only to crumble from within. The burning eagle seemed to embody all these cautionary tales, a reminder that even the mightiest nations can fall if they lose sight of their founding principles. The eerie silence following the eagle's crash was short-lived. Rachel became aware of a low, pulsing hum emanating from the black obelisk she had encountered earlier. Its symbols glowed with increased intensity, casting an ominous light across the ruined cityscape. The obelisk's influence appeared to be growing stronger, feeding off the despair and chaos surrounding it. As the obelisk's power surged, Rachel felt a growing sense of dread. The fallen eagle, once a symbol of hope and freedom, now lay broken on the ground. Its defeat seemed to mark a turning point, a moment when the scales tipped irrevocably towards darkness. Rachel understood with chilling clarity that she was witnessing more than just the fall of a symbolic bird. This was a vision of America's potential downfall. The ground beneath Rachel's feet began to tremble, and the air grew thick with an oppressive energy. She sensed that the vision was about to intensify, revealing even greater horrors. As she braced herself for what was to come, Rachel couldn't help but wonder, if this was the fate that awaited her nation, was there any hope left for redemption? Rachel's question about hope hung in the air, but what unfolded next defied even her darkest imaginings. Have you ever wondered what it would look like if reality itself began to unravel? Rachel was about to find out, and the answer would shake her to her very core. The devastation that had gripped the city intensified, morphing into something beyond earthly comprehension. Buildings warped and twisted, their structures defying the laws of physics. The blood-red sky fractured like shattered glass, revealing glimpses of cosmic chaos beyond. Rachel stood transfixed, her mind struggling to process the supernatural events unfolding before her eyes. As the fabric of reality continued to tear, a horrifying scene played out in the streets below. People caught in the maelstrom began to combust spontaneously, their bodies engulfed in otherworldly flames, the air filled with agonized screams as men, women, and children were consumed by fire, their forms reduced to ash in mere moments. The sight was reminiscent of ancient tales of divine judgment, where the wicked were purged from the earth in a cleansing inferno. Even more chilling were the masked figures Rachel had noticed earlier. They stood impassively amidst the chaos, observing the destruction with an eerie detachment. Their presence seemed to amplify the sense of dread and helplessness that permeated the scene. Rachel couldn't help but draw parallels to historical accounts of societal breakdown, where authority figures exploited panic and fear to maintain control over a desperate populace. The concept of divine judgment played out before Rachel's eyes in a terrifying tableau. She recalled stories from various belief systems: the Christian rapture, the Hindu cycle of cosmic dissolution, the Islamic day of judgment, all speaking of a time when the old world would be swept away to make room for the new. Was this vision a glimpse of that prophesied reckoning? As the destruction reached a fever pitch, Rachel became acutely aware of the black obelisk she had encountered earlier. Its power seemed to be growing exponentially, feeding off the chaos and suffering that surrounded it. The symbols etched into its surface pulsed with an otherworldly energy, casting long shadows across the disintegrating landscape. Rachel felt a deep sense of foreboding as she realized the obelisk's influence was reaching its zenith. The air grew thick with tension, an almost palpable sense of anticipation building as the obelisk's power peaked. Rachel's heart raced, her breath coming in short gasps as she braced herself for what was to come. In that moment of heightened awareness, a voice thundered across the ruined cityscape, seeming to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The hour has come," the voice declared, its tone filled with finality and power. The words reverberated through Rachel's very being, marking a point of no return in her extraordinary vision. As the echoes of this proclamation faded, Rachel sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The relentless destruction paused, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. In that suspended moment, a faint glimmer caught her eye, a pinpoint of golden light emerging from the chaos. Could this be a sign of hope amidst the devastation? Rachel focused on that tiny spark, wondering what new revelation awaited her in this journey through the apocalyptic landscape of America's potential future. In the midst of chaos, a sudden stillness descended upon the ravaged landscape. The relentless destruction paused, as if the universe itself held its breath. From this eerie calm, a pinpoint of golden light emerged, growing steadily brighter against the backdrop of devastation. Rachel watched in awe as the light expanded, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold desolation surrounding her. The golden radiance coalesced into a figure of pure luminescence, its form both familiar and otherworldly. As it took shape, Rachel felt a profound sense of peace wash over her, dispelling the fear and dread that had gripped her heart. The figure's presence was a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness, its mere existence a challenge to the despair that had seemed so absolute moments before. This unexpected apparition brought to mind accounts of divine intervention from various faiths. In Christianity, angelic visitations often heralded moments of great significance, offering guidance and reassurance in times of crisis. Islamic traditions spoke of the Prophet Muhammad's encounters with the angel Gabriel, bringing revelations that would shape the course of history. Across cultures and beliefs, the appearance of celestial beings in times of darkness was a recurring theme, symbolizing the enduring presence of hope and divine guidance. As Rachel gazed upon the figure, she recalled stories of individuals who claimed to have experienced similar visions during near-death experiences or moments of spiritual awakening. These accounts often described beings of light that radiated love and wisdom, their presence bringing comfort and transformation to those who encountered them. While skeptics might dismiss such experiences as hallucinations or the product of a stressed mind, those who lived through them often spoke of their profound, life-altering impact. The contrast between the figure of light and the surrounding destruction was stark and undeniable. Where chaos had reigned, there was now a pocket of serenity. The devastated cityscape seemed to recede as if the very air around the luminous being was being purified of the taint of destruction. Rachel felt drawn to this oasis of calm, sensing that she stood on the threshold of a revelation. As the figure's presence grew stronger, Rachel noticed a change in the atmosphere. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation, charged with an energy that made her skin tingle. She sensed that the being was preparing to communicate, and she braced herself for what she might hear. What message could this divine messenger bring to a world seemingly beyond salvation? The moment stretched, taut with expectation. Then, without warning, a voice resonated through Rachel's entire being. It wasn't a sound heard with ears, but rather a vibration felt in the very core of her soul. The words, clear and powerful, declared, "From the ashes, the faithful will rise." The proclamation hung in the air, a promise of renewal amidst the ruins of the old world. As the echoes of this divine declaration faded, Rachel became aware of a shift in the energy around her. The figure of light seemed to grow even brighter, its radiance pushing back the encroaching darkness. Yet from the corner of her eye, she noticed the ominous black obelisk pulsing with renewed intensity. The stage was set for a confrontation between these opposing forces, a battle between light and darkness that would determine the fate of all she had witnessed. Throughout history, tales of cosmic battles between good and evil have captivated the human imagination. As Rachel stood witness to this otherworldly confrontation, she realized she was experiencing a manifestation of this timeless struggle. The figure of light and the ominous obelisk faced each other in silent opposition, their very essences clashing in a battle beyond mortal comprehension. The air crackled with unseen energy, growing heavy and oppressive as the two forces engaged. Rachel felt the weight of this conflict pressing down on her, making it difficult to breathe. The figure of light seemed to pulse with a warm, comforting radiance that pushed back against the creeping darkness emanating from the obelisk. Yet for every advance made by the light, the shadows seemed to grow deeper and more menacing. This silent war echoed the concept of spiritual warfare found in many belief systems. In Christianity, believers are thought to be engaged in a constant battle against demonic forces seeking to lead them astray. Other religions and philosophies similarly recognize the ongoing struggle between forces of good and evil, often represented as light and darkness. The confrontation before Rachel's eyes embodied the principle of dualism, a concept prevalent in religious and philosophical thought. This idea posits that two fundamental and opposing forces exist in the universe, eternally locked in conflict. The radiant figure and the imposing obelisk served as perfect embodiments of this duality. Their clash, a representation of the cosmic balance between creation and destruction, hope and despair. As the battle raged on, Rachel sensed a shift in the energy surrounding her. The figure of light seemed to grow even brighter, its brilliance pushing back the encroaching shadows with renewed vigor. Suddenly, Rachel felt the being's attention turn towards her. Though it had no discernible face, she could feel its gaze penetrating her very soul. A voice that was not quite a voice resonated within Rachel's mind, carrying a message of profound importance. "Remember," it said, the word imbued with an otherworldly power. "From the ashes, the faithful will rise. Hope remains, even in the darkest hour." The words seared themselves into Rachel's consciousness, a message she knew she was meant to carry back to the world of the living. As the echoes of this divine communication faded, Rachel became aware of a new presence emerging from the chaos around her. The ground beneath her feet began to tremble, and a deep rumbling filled the air. From a fiery chasm that had not been there moments before, an enormous structure began to rise. Rachel's eyes widened in awe as she recognized the unmistakable form of a massive ancient clock. The clock's weathered face bore the marks of countless ages, its hands moving with an erratic, unnatural motion. As it fully emerged from the depths, Rachel sensed that this timepiece held the key to understanding the visions she had witnessed. With bated breath, she prepared herself for the next revelation in this extraordinary journey through the realms of prophecy and fate. Time, they say, waits for no one. But as Rachel stood before the colossal clock, she realized that in this realm, time itself was waiting for something momentous. The clock's hands twitched and trembled, as if fighting against an unseen force. What cosmic event could cause time itself to hesitate? The massive timepiece rose from a fiery chasm, its ancient face weathered by countless ages. Its bronze surface was etched with intricate symbols and patterns that seemed to shift and change with each passing moment. The clock towered over Rachel, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. Its presence was oppressive, filling the air with a sense of impending doom. As Rachel watched, the clock's hands began to move erratically. They spun backwards and forwards, each movement revealing fleeting visions of past and future. She glimpsed great empires rising and falling, technological marvels emerging and crumbling to dust. The rapid succession of images was dizzying, a whirlwind tour through the annals of human history and beyond. The symbolism of the clock in this apocalyptic vision was unmistakable. In many religious traditions, the concept of the end times is often associated with the fulfillment of a divine plan. The erratic movement of the clock's hands seemed to suggest that the normal flow of time was breaking down, heralding the approach of a final judgment or cosmic reset. Rachel recalled the various beliefs about the end of days she had encountered. Christians spoke of the rapture and the second coming of Christ. Muslims anticipated the day of judgment. Hindu scriptures described the end of the Kali Yuga and the dawn of a new cosmic cycle. All these traditions shared a common thread: the idea that time itself would reach a critical juncture, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. As the clock's hands approached midnight, the air grew thick with tension. Rachel felt as if the entire universe was holding its breath, waiting for the fateful moment when the hands would align. The visions flashing across the clock's face became more intense, more vivid. She saw glimpses of great cataclysms, of stars falling from the sky, of the earth itself trembling. With agonizing slowness, the minute hand inched towards the 12. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest, each beat seeming to echo the ticking of the massive timepiece. As the hand reached 11:59, everything stopped. The clock froze, its hands quivering on the brink of midnight. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, nothing moved. Then, without warning, the clock shattered. It exploded outward in a shower of gears, springs, and fragments of time itself. The shockwave knocked Rachel off her feet, and as she fell, she felt herself being pulled into yet another vision. She sensed that she was about to witness the final, crucial message of her extraordinary journey. What revelation awaited her in these last moments of her near-death experience? As the fragments of time rained down around her, Rachel found herself face to face with an ancient obelisk, pulsing with otherworldly energy. What secrets would this mysterious monument reveal about humanity's fate? And more importantly, could she bear the weight of the message it was about to impart? The chaos intensified as the obelisk's power reached its zenith. The air crackled with an electric charge, and the ground beneath Rachel's feet trembled. The symbols etched into the obelisk's surface glowed with an unearthly light, casting eerie shadows across the devastated landscape. Rachel felt an inexorable pull towards the monolith, as if it were drawing her into its dark embrace. Suddenly, a thunderous voice reverberated through the air, shaking Rachel to her very core. "The hour has come," it proclaimed. "The reckoning begins." The words hung heavy in the atmosphere, pregnant with the weight of divine judgment. Rachel recalled the various religious traditions that spoke of such a moment: the Christian Day of Judgment, the Islamic Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Hindu concept of Pralaya. Each foretold a time when humanity would be called to account for its actions. Throughout history, prophetic warnings have shaped the course of human events. From ancient oracles to modern-day visionaries, those who claim to glimpse the future have often influenced the present. Rachel wondered if her experience would join the ranks of these world-altering prophecies. Would her message change the hearts and minds of those who heard it? As Rachel pondered these questions, she felt herself being inexorably drawn towards the obelisk. Its power seemed to increase with each passing moment, the air around it shimmering with barely contained energy. Rachel's heart raced as she approached, torn between fear and an overwhelming sense of purpose. She knew that whatever message awaited her within the obelisk's depths would be crucial to understanding the fate of her nation and perhaps the world. Just as Rachel was about to make contact with the obelisk's surface, a blinding light erupted from within. The voice spoke again, this time with an urgency that left no room for doubt. "Remember," it commanded, "the foundations of faith will be tested. Only those who stand firm in the face of darkness will weather the coming storm." The words seared themselves into Rachel's consciousness, a message she knew she was destined to carry back to the world of the living. As the light engulfed her, Rachel felt herself being pulled away from the vision, back towards her physical body. The obelisk, the devastated landscape, and the echoes of the divine voice began to fade. As Rachel drifted back to consciousness, she realized that her journey through the spiritual realm was coming to an end. But the weight of what she had witnessed and the urgency of the message she carried remained. She knew that her life would never be the same, and that she now bore a responsibility to share her vision with a world teetering on the brink of change. Rachel's eyes fluttered open, the stark white ceiling of the hospital room slowly coming into focus. The steady beep of monitors filled her ears, a sharp contrast to the otherworldly silence she had just experienced. As consciousness fully returned, Rachel gasped, her body jerking upright with such force that it startled the nearby nurse. "Dr. Thompson! She's awake!" the nurse called out, rushing to Rachel's bedside. The room suddenly burst into a flurry of activity as medical staff swarmed around her, checking vital signs and asking rapid-fire questions, but Rachel barely registered their presence. Her mind was reeling, trying to process the extraordinary journey she had just undergone. The vivid images of destruction, the ominous black obelisk, and the radiant figure of light were all seared into her memory. She could still hear the thunderous voice proclaiming, "The hour has come, the reckoning begins." As Dr. Thompson shone a light into her eyes, Rachel struggled to find words to express what she had experienced. How could she possibly explain the profound vision she had witnessed? The weight of the message she carried felt almost unbearable. "Rachel, can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" Dr. Thompson's voice seemed distant, barely penetrating the fog of Rachel's thoughts. Research has shown that individuals who undergo near-death experiences often report significant changes in their beliefs and behaviors. Many describe a newfound sense of purpose and a deep, unshakable conviction in the reality of their experience. As Rachel looked into the concerned faces of her medical team, she realized that she had been irrevocably changed by her journey. The human brain's capacity to process traumatic or intense experiences is remarkable. Studies have indicated that during moments of extreme stress or altered states of consciousness, the brain can create vivid, seemingly real experiences that feel as tangible as waking life. Yet for Rachel, the line between hallucination and divine revelation seemed blurred beyond recognition. As the initial commotion subsided and the medical staff began to disperse, Rachel felt an overwhelming sense of urgency building within her. The message she had received wasn't meant for her alone, it was a warning for the entire world. But how could she convey the gravity of what she had seen? Who would believe her? The enormity of her task began to dawn on Rachel. She wasn't just a patient recovering from a near-death experience. She was now a messenger tasked with sharing a prophecy of monumental importance. The fate of her nation, perhaps even the world, seemed to rest on her shoulders. With trembling hands, Rachel reached for the glass of water on her bedside table. As she took a sip, she made a silent vow to herself. No matter the challenges that lay ahead, no matter the skepticism she would undoubtedly face, she would find a way to share her warning with the world. The vision she had experienced was too important, too urgent to keep to herself. As Rachel settled back against her pillows, her mind already racing with plans for how to spread her message, she realized that her entire perspective on life and faith had been fundamentally altered. The woman who had entered this hospital was gone, replaced by someone with a newfound purpose and an unshakable conviction in the power of her experience. What if the fate of millions hinged on your ability to convey a message no one wants to hear? For Rachel, this wasn't just a hypothetical scenario, it was now her reality. As she prepared to leave the hospital, she faced a choice that would ripple through time, potentially altering the course of history itself. Rachel's worldview had been irrevocably transformed by her near-death experience. The visions of America's potential downfall, the ominous black obelisk, and the figure of light had left an indelible mark on her psyche. She felt a profound sense of urgency, knowing that the message she carried was not meant for her alone, but for an entire nation teetering on the brink of spiritual crisis. As Rachel contemplated her next steps, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the enormity of her task. How could she possibly convey the gravity of what she had witnessed to a skeptical world? She knew that many would dismiss her account as the ravings of a traumatized mind or a desperate bid for attention. The challenge before her seemed insurmountable. Yet, Rachel found strength in her newfound faith. Her experience had shown her the power of belief in the face of darkness and uncertainty. She recalled the words that had been seared into her consciousness. From the ashes, the faithful will rise. Hope remains, even in the darkest hour. These words became her mantra, a source of courage as she prepared to face the doubts and ridicule that would inevitably come her way. Throughout history, prophetic messages have often spread in the face of great adversity. From the ancient Hebrew prophets to modern-day visionaries, those who claim to bear divine warnings have frequently been met with skepticism and hostility. Yet their messages have often found fertile ground in the hearts of those yearning for hope and meaning in troubled times. Rachel knew that her journey would not be easy. She would need to navigate the fine line between sharing her truth and being dismissed as a fanatic. As she pondered her approach, she felt a growing resolve. The weight of her responsibility was balanced by the conviction that she had been chosen for this task for a reason. With each passing moment, Rachel's determination grew stronger. She began to embrace her role not just as a messenger of warning, but as a beacon of hope. Her experience had shown her that even in the darkest of times, there was always a glimmer of light for those who had faith. As Rachel prepared to share her story with the world, she felt a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. She knew that her words had the power to challenge, inspire, and potentially transform. The journey ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but Rachel was ready to face them head-on, armed with the unshakable belief that her message could make a difference. With a deep breath, Rachel stepped out of the hospital and into a world that suddenly seemed both familiar and utterly changed. She was no longer just Rachel the patient, but Rachel the messenger, carrying a vision of America's potential future and a call to spiritual awakening. As she took her first steps on this new path, she felt the weight of her purpose settling upon her shoulders, a burden she now willingly embraced. Rachel's extraordinary journey challenges us to confront our own spiritual readiness. In a world teetering on the edge of uncertainty, her vision serves as a powerful wake-up call. Are we prepared for the trials that may lie ahead? How strong is the foundation of our faith? As we reflect on Rachel's experience, we're compelled to examine our own beliefs and values. What would we do if faced with a similar revelation? How would we respond to a divine message in a skeptical world? These questions aren't merely hypothetical, they strike at the core of our spiritual identity. Rachel's story reminds us that the veil between our world and the unseen realm may be thinner than we realize. In the blink of an eye, our perception of reality can be forever altered. Are we open to the possibility of divine intervention in our lives? The answers to these questions may determine our readiness for whatever the future holds.